This historical retelling centers around Black Elk, a young Oglala Lakota boy known as Hakasapa, who experienced the Battle of Little Bighorn at the age of 13. His perspective offers a window into the courage, tension, and spiritual connection of the Native American warriors who fought to protect their ancestral lands. Let's delve into this compelling story with a respectful and culturally sensitive narrative that remains true to history and adheres to YouTube's community guidelines. Make sure to like and subscribe to support our channel as we share significant stories of resilience and bravery. Prelude to the Battle Black Elk story begins before the infamous Battle of Little Bighorn in 1876, which marked one of the most significant confrontations between the Native American tribes and U.S. military forces. The tribes, including the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho, were fighting to protect their territories and way of life against encroachment by settlers and soldiers. Black Elk, related to the revered warrior leader Crazy Horse, witnessed the events unfold with both fear and bravery. Crazy Horse, having recently defeated General Crook's troops in the Battle of the Rosebud, was a key figure among the Lakota. His strategic mind and fearless spirit were respected across the tribes. Black Elk, although just a young boy, had already shown great promise and courage, evident in his spiritual visions and the ceremonial responsibilities bestowed upon him. Before the battle, Black Elk participated in a healing ceremony for Rattling Hawk, a warrior injured in previous confrontations. The healing ritual the evening before the fateful battle, Black Elk joined other boys in a sacred healing ritual led by a medicine man named Harry Chin. The ceremony called for them to embody the spirit of bears, creatures revered for their strength and healing powers. Harry Chin painted Black Elk's body yellow with black stripes across his face, tying his hair in a bear-like fashion and adorning him with eagle feathers. During the ritual, Black Elk was overcome by a vision that felt like a premonition of impending danger. The boys played their roles dutifully, growling and dancing around the injured warrior, Rattling Hawk, who soon showed signs of recovery. Although he couldn't join the battle the next day, Rattling Hawk's condition improved significantly. Camp life along the greasy grass in the days leading up to the battle. The native camp stretched along the banks of the Little Bighorn River known to the tribes as the Greasy Grass. The expansive camp was bustling with life, featuring countless teepees, lively dances, and families gathering for meals. Villagers were hopeful for peace, hoping that recent victories would deter further aggression from the U.S. Army. As Black Elk recounted, the riverbanks were lined with timber, and the bluffs and hills surrounding the camp provided a view of the landscape beyond. On the morning of June 25, 1876, Black Elk and several boys were swimming in the river to cool off under the intense sun. It was then that they heard the alarming calls of criers racing through the camps. "The soldiers are coming! The soldiers are charging!" echoed across the valley, causing panic and urgency among the warriors and villagers. Black Elk, like others, quickly prepared to defend his people. The battle unfolds. The ensuing battle was chaotic, filled with the thunder of horse hooves and the sounds of gunfire. The 7th Cavalry Regiment, led by Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer, advanced quickly and unexpectedly, but the warriors were prepared. Crazy Horse, along with Chief Gall and other leaders, led a fierce defense. Black Elk witnessed the courage of the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho warriors as they protected their families. The fighting was intense, and the warriors employed strategic ambushes, utilizing the terrain to their advantage. Black Elk, despite his young age, was not merely a bystander. He was both an observer and a participant, embodying the spirit of the Lakota and showing remarkable bravery. His descriptions of the battle detail the bravery of the warriors, the chaos of the conflict, and the powerful sense of unity among the tribes. Aftermath and reflections. The battle was a decisive victory for the native warriors, and Custer's forces were overwhelmed. This victory, however, was bittersweet. Black Elk and others understood that their victory might provoke harsher retaliation from the U.S. military in the future. As night fell, the camp was filled with dancing and storytelling, as warriors recounted their valor and remembered those who had fallen. In the days following the battle, Black Elk's visions deepened, providing him with insights about the future struggles that awaited his people. His later life would be marked by a quest to share his visions and preserve the Lakota culture in the face of growing challenges, including forced relocations and efforts to assimilate Native Americans into mainstream American society. Conclusion. The Battle of Little Bighorn was a pivotal moment in American history, symbolizing both the strength of Native resistance and the tragic clash of cultures. Black Elk's story is one of bravery, spirituality, and deep connection to the land. His account of the battle serves as a testament to the courage and resilience of the Native American tribes, whose legacy continues to inspire many today. If you enjoyed this historical retelling, please support our channel by liking and subscribing. We're committed to sharing stories that honor the rich history and culture of Native American tribes while promoting education and awareness. Stay tuned for more insightful content. As the Battle of Little Bighorn intensified, a wave of panic spread through the valley. Women and children moved quickly downstream, seeking safety away from the thick of the battle. Looking back, I saw them scattering like leaves in a storm, climbing a hillside in a frantic rush. By the time I reached the timber, many of the Hunkpapas had already gathered, taking cover among the trees. The soldiers' gunfire pierced the air above us, causing leaves to fall as the bullets hit the branches. Women and children ran for their lives, while warriors surged forward on horseback, determined to protect our people. Amidst the chaos, I could barely make out what was happening in the encampment below. The entire scene was engulfed in dust, filled with cries, the rumbling of hooves, and the sounds of war. Despite the turmoil, voices rose from the woods, rallying the warriors. Have courage. Don't falter. It was a call to stand strong in the face of the soldiers' advance, emphasizing our duty to shield the defenseless. I stayed among the trees, trying to find meaning in the vision I had experienced earlier. It filled me with a deep sense of purpose, reinforcing my belief that we could triumph in this battle and protect our land. Just then, a resounding shout broke through the dust. Crazy Horse is approaching. The arrival of Crazy Horse, our esteemed leader, brought an immediate sense of hope. The sound of eagle bone whistles filled the air, as if the spirits themselves were heralding his presence. The valley grew darker with dust, a swirling mix of shadows, cries, and gunfire. To my left, I could hear the clatter of soldiers' horses retreating into the underbrush, their iron-shod hooves echoing through the chaos. In the midst of the turmoil, the soldiers seemed to lose ground, pushed back by the relentless charge of the Lakota warriors. I watched as a Lakota fighter charged at a lone soldier who bravely tried to hold his position. The warrior grabbed the soldier's horse by its reins, but the soldier, with a quick move, fired his revolver in defense. As a young boy, I struggled to break through the mass of fighters to reach the front lines. The density of the crowd made it hard to see what was happening clearly, and I felt a mix of fear and frustration. Soon, the battle extended into the river, where horses and warriors fought in the water, creating splashes that resembled a sudden downpour. After emerging from the water, I saw Lakota warriors stripping the fallen soldiers of their uniforms, an act that symbolized victory. At one point, an older warrior turned to me and instructed, "Boy, get off and scalp that soldier." With a sense of urgency, I dismounted and approached the soldier. My hands trembled slightly as I began the task, using a dull knife. The soldier, still alive, watched me with weary eyes, his face a mix of pain and defiance. To end his suffering, I fired a shot into his forehead and completed the scalp. This was a significant moment for me, as it marked my first experience of participating in such an act, one tied to the traditions of my people. As I looked around, I saw our warriors pushing the soldiers back toward a distant hill, where they attempted to make a final stand. The dust cloud above the Santee camp thickened as warriors charged in and out of it, like swift swallows darting through a storm. Determined to share my achievement with my mother, I rode toward a hill where women and children had gathered. As I approached, I could hear their encouraging songs, tremolos meant to inspire the fighters across the river. My mother, seeing me with my first scalp, gave a special call of pride, lifting my spirits. I stayed on the hill for a while, watching the swirling dust across the river. The women continued to sing, their voices filled with hope and encouragement. Soon, the boys my age urged me to join them, eager to return to the fray. We mounted our ponies and rode toward the battlefield. As we neared the river, we saw gray horses with empty saddles stampeding into the water, a sign of the soldiers' retreat. We crossed the greasy grass and followed a gulch that led up into the bluffs, arriving just as the remaining soldiers were being driven back. By then, most of the soldiers had fallen, though a few continued to resist. The boys and I rode around, shooting arrows toward the remaining troops. At one point, I found a soldier who was still moving, his body pierced by arrows. I started to take his coat, but another warrior claimed it. Noticing something shiny on the soldier's belt, I pulled it out, a round, bright yellow object that I later learned was a watch. I wore it around my neck, fascinated by its beauty, even though I did not yet know what it was. The battle continued for a while longer, with gray horses and soldiers lying motionless on the hill. Our fallen had already been moved, but the smell of blood lingered in the air, mingling with the dust. The scene was somber, and I felt a mix of triumph and sadness. I saw a Lakota fighter being aided by others, and as I got closer, I recognized him as Black Wasiku, a relative who had been injured during the battle. He was receiving treatment, and I felt a surge of anger, knowing the cost of this conflict. A young boy, eager to prove himself, asked me to scalp a fallen soldier, which I did. He ran off to show his mother, filled with a sense of accomplishment. Meanwhile, the rest of the warriors drove the remaining soldiers back up the hill, determined to clear the battlefield. Exhaustion began to set in, and the air was thick with the smell of blood and dust. After a while, I grew tired and decided to return home with a few others. The battle was over, and I felt a sense of fulfillment. The soldiers had come to take our land and harm our families, but we had defended ourselves with honor. This was our land, our sacred place, and I was proud to have played a part in its defense. As I stood among the hunkpapas in the brush, watching the first shots being fired, a familiar feeling washed over me. It was as if I had foreseen this moment in my vision, the one where I saw the thunder beings guiding our people. I believed strongly that we were connected to these powerful spirits and that the soldiers were unwise to enter this sacred place. The entire village stayed awake through the night with a sense of urgency and anticipation. The following morning, another group of warriors prepared to return to the hill where the soldiers had gathered. The men who had kept watch overnight returned to camp, exhausted but resolute. My mother and I decided to join the group heading back. She rode a mare, its small colt trotting closely beside, determined to keep pace. As we approached the hill, we could see the soldiers' horses and pack mules, but the soldiers remained out of sight, fortified behind their defenses. At the base of the hill, along the western side of the greasy grass, we noticed a patch of bullberry bushes. A boy named Round Fool was running around them, his face filled with excitement. "What are you doing?" we asked him. He pointed and said, "There's a white man hiding in those bushes." Sure enough, a soldier who had not made it to the hilltop the previous night was concealed there, hoping to evade us. As we circled the bushes, the scene felt almost unreal, like a strange game of cat and mouse. Arrows flew toward the dense foliage, while the man hiding within scrambled from side to side, desperate to avoid the strikes. His movements were frantic, and at one point, we heard a pained cry, "Ow!" The warriors and I felt a mixture of tension and urgency. It seemed he was running out of time and options. In an effort to end the standoff, we set fire to the dry grass surrounding the bushes. Smoke quickly filled the air, and flames crackled hungrily. Overwhelmed, the soldier had no choice but to run out, his silhouette blurred by smoke. He was swiftly overpowered by our warriors. It was a grim but decisive moment, one among many that marked the intense battle. Afterward, we climbed the back of the hill, where some of our men were stationed, watching over the battlefield. The soldiers had hidden themselves well within their defensive positions, but we could clearly see the lifeless bodies of horses and pack mules scattered across the ground below. Their still forms stood in stark contrast to the earlier chaos. Realizing that the situation could escalate, again, my mother and I decided to return to the camp quickly. We crossed the river, but as we did, we suddenly came under fire from soldiers. Bullets splashed into the water around us, echoing through the valley. Despite the danger, we managed to make it back safely, arriving just as dusk fell over the village. When we arrived, urgent news awaited us. Scouts reported that more soldiers were advancing up the stream. A decision was made swiftly. Everyone needed to break camp and move. As the light faded, the village became a blur of activity, with people packing their belongings, gathering children, and preparing to leave. We began moving northward along the greasy grass toward Woodlouse Creek in the Bighorn Mountains. The journey through the night was long and filled with anxiety. My mother, in haste, had placed a few puppies into the pony drag that my two younger brothers and I rode in. The puppies were restless, constantly trying to crawl out, so I spent most of the night chasing them back into the drag. As a result, I hardly slept at all, but my fatigue was secondary to the urgency of our escape. At dawn, we reached a small, dry stream where we paused to rest and set up a temporary camp. We were hungry, and the sight of food brought brief comfort. We feasted on meat that was rich and fatty, a much-needed meal in the midst of uncertainty. For a moment, it felt like a rare reprieve, a chance to catch our breath. By midday, we continued our journey and finally arrived at Woodlouse Creek at the base of the mountains. Here, we established a more secure camp, hoping to regain some sense of safety. It was here that a severely injured warrior, known as Three Bears, began to convulse. He repeatedly murmured the word Janini, though I did not understand its meaning. Despite the efforts to save him, he succumbed to his wounds. From that day on, the area became known as the camp where Janini died, a somber reminder of the cost of the conflict. That evening, as we settled down, a sudden commotion rippled through the camp. Cries of alarm broke out. "The soldiers are coming!" Startled, I turned and saw what appeared to be troops approaching from a distance. My heart pounded with fear. Had the soldiers found us again? But as they drew closer, the truth became clear. It was our own warriors, disguised in captured uniforms and playfully trying to surprise us. Relief washed over the camp as scouts soon confirmed that no soldiers were pursuing us. We were safe for now. The rest of the night was filled with celebration. Large fires lit up the camp, and warriors performed victory dances. Laughter mixed with songs of triumph, as tales of bravery were recounted. It was a moment of unity and defiance, a celebration of survival after days of intense struggle. For the first time in what felt like forever, we could finally rest, if only for a little while. I hope this first-hand account of the Battle of Little Bighorn and the Great Sioux War of 1876 offers you a deeper understanding of the events from the perspective of the Lakota people. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more insights into significant historical battles told from the perspectives of those who lived them. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.